Hello, lovely listeners. Welcome to the Now podcast. In this episode, we celebrate the incredible journey of motherhood and the amazing individuals who support and guide us along the way. I'm your host, Tara Hunnewell, and I am thrilled to introduce today's guest, a remarkable woman hailing all the way from the beautiful landscapes of South Africa. She's not just any doula. She's a beacon of strength and wisdom. And personally, she guided me through the transformative experience of childbirth, helping me embrace the beauty of a natural and confident birth. Her passion for supporting mothers knows no bounds, and her soothing presence and wealth of knowledge make her a true gem in the world of birthing professionals. So whether you're an expecting mother, a birth enthusiast, or just curious about the incredible journey of bringing new life into the world, you're in for a treat. Join me in welcoming the phenomenal doula, Chery Sjögren, as we dive into her inspiring journey and glean insights that will empower and uplift you on your own path to motherhood. Stay tuned for a conversation filled with warmth, wisdom, and the magic of bringing life into the world. Let's dive in. So hello everybody, welcome to The Now. I'm Tara Hunnewell, and I am here with the beautiful, very, very important person in my life who I am so happy to have here with me. I'm here with Chery Sjögren.
Hi, Tara.
Hello, Chery.
Thank you so much for having me at The Now. It's absolutely beautiful to see you and be in this gorgeous space again. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. And I've been just longing to have this conversation with you. So let's dive in. We're going to talk about birth today.
Woohoo!
Because I met Chery very, very shortly after I moved here to Gothenburg, actually.
Yeah, that's right.
I was new here. I didn't have many friends. I didn't have much of a community. And I felt a little like, ooh, I'm giving birth in a new country, in a new place. And I just found such a shelter in you. And I just am blessed to have been introduced to doula extraordinaire, goddess from South Africa, who just has given me the greatest gift, truly, to be able to have a magical birth, a moment in my life. The preparation that you gave me for the birth of our son, Odin, was exactly what I needed. And we talked about this a moment ago, that how birth is something that it's the sensitive topic. But the birth that I was able to experience was a moment that I wish every woman on the planet could experience that gives birth, because it is a transcendent experience. It's a moment where
it really is.
I mean, a gift.
Yes. Well, firstly, I want to say, Tara, thank you so much for saying all that. Truly warms my heart on this grey November day. And more than ever, yes, we need to speak about love. That love needs to surround us and needs to surround our births instead of fear.
Yes, because I know a lot has even changed since 8 years ago when I gave birth.
Yes, absolutely.
So we'll start at the beginning, and I just want you to share with our listeners a little bit about your background. Yeah, we always start with the question, who am I? Who is Chery?
It's an interesting question, actually, because I never could have dreamed of being a doula. Growing up in South Africa, being born 1971, I could say that I was born to a mom who was a victim of her time. It was a very sexist time. It was apartheid. There was a lot of fear. And that fear was brought into the birthing room. Men couldn't be with, so my dad wasn't with. Men sat out in corridors, and women were on a conveyor belt, basically, because we had adopted the style from the US at the time, which was a trend that all women had to have an episiotomy, all women had to be shaved, their pubic hair shaved off, plus they had to have enemas so that, there would be no unseen things when you give birth. And you were on your back, and the baby was swished away immediately after, put in an incubator, washed, wrapped, and with strangers. And my mother was incredibly traumatized by her birth. So even as a small child, I remember hearing her speak and also speaking to her friends, recalling the horrific experiences they had and how they had such trouble connecting with the children. The bonding was really interrupted. So in my case, for example, mom did not breastfeed and I didn't even live with her. So the first 6 weeks of my life, I was with my grandma and I was being bottle fed. Wow. And my mom and dad went on a holiday to try and recover. And from this experience that just shook them up so much. And it was common, it wasn't strange. And then, of course, I bonded with my grandma greatly. And I absolutely didn't want to be separated from her because she was then my go-to person. Even though I wasn't breastfed, she bottle fed me and I absolutely didn't want to be with mom. So mom and I had great difficulties bonding.
Your whole childhood, this carried through?
This carried through my entire childhood. And I stayed eventually with grandma until I was 6 and only then went home because then my mom gave birth again. And again had a very traumatic experience and had the baby blues, as they called it then. So for her as a mom, she didn't have an easy time. So that's kind of the story I was fed, and I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified of the idea of giving birth, because this is what I heard women speak of. Then let's fast forward a little to, I'm living in Johannesburg. I've met a Swedish man. I'm working as a creative. I'm doing all kinds of clothing design. I'm very, very far from being in hospitals and doulaying and all that. Mm-hmm. But then I have a young sister, the one that mom had when I was 6. And she had by then turned 20, was together with a Rastafarian, of course, wrong color at the time in South Africa. So they were shunned, and my mom and dad threw them out. They had nowhere to go. She was pregnant. She came to live with me. And then I took on the role of a little bit like mom. Okay, I'm pregnant. What shall I do? Chery, do you have any ideas where we're going to give birth? I had no idea. I was just, I'm terrified, but I don't want to tell her I'm terrified. So let's see what I can do. And at the time, I was friends with a wonderful artist. His name was Nathaniel Tardru. He was 20 years my senior. And he said, Chery, I know exactly what you need. You need this book. This book was Spiritual Midwifery by Ina May Gaskin. And I tell you, I looked at this book and I was like, what the heck? What is this?
What is this story?
What is this story? I mean, you open up the first page. It's basically a woman giving birth outside under a tree. She's got huge pubes. And I was like, what? Where did you even find this? Is this even allowed? Is this legal?
Should I be reading this?
And he's like, Chery, there's other wonderful books by a South African doctor, for example, Birthing Without Violence, by a French doctor, Birthing Without Fear. I was like, what? I mean, I've always been interested in literature, right? I was actually a literature student at university once again. No idea that I was going to go this route. So I was like, bring it on. Yeah. Give me the literature so I can read. What is this?
Yes.
So I was studying all this and sort of giving my sister a little bit of snippets of, we could do this, we could do that. You know, I've got a rocking chair, sit in that, in the garden. You know, this could be good. Wow. I wanted her to have a positive experience and not be in that negative space. And it pretty much was my sister's birth that was my saving grace, right? Wow. So she was 20, you basically at the height of your physical health and well-being. The body's just ready to give birth. She was so healthy, radiant, and not that things can't go wrong when you're young, of course. We had no idea anyway of anything at the time. And so when the day came and she did go into labor, she was with me in my garden in South Africa, under a big tree, sitting in a rocking chair, completely relaxed. And I was the one that was stressed. I wasn't a chill doula. I was, should we maybe go to the hospital? Because now I see you have contractions. She's like, no. I feel so good. This isn't really painful. I'm like, ooh, I don't know. And it went on like that the whole day, you know. until later in the evening, I could see she's in a little bit more pain. I said, maybe you want to take a bath? She lay in my bathtub. I had all these oils. I was like, come out, I'm going to massage your belly. Still not knowing much. I just read that, this is all good and oxytocin is good and relaxation is good. But she was very relaxed. So when she came out, contractions were 1 minute apart. And I was like, somewhere I read that this is very close to the end. So I called a doctor friend and he said, I think you should go to the Johannesburg General Hospital really, really quickly. Don't stress, but it's happening. We basically got there. We went in. The midwives gave my sister one look and said, please come into the delivery room. And 5 minutes later, my sister had given birth.
Wow.
There was no tearing, there was no cutting, there was no shaving. She walked out drinking a Coca-Cola while this beautiful African nurse was like holding the baby. And I was basically lying on the floor, sobbing, screaming, what has happened? What? I was prepared for all kinds of things. And my sister became my savior.
Wow.
And then ever since then, ever since that day, that's when the doula was born.
Yes.
And then, of course, came my own pregnancy. Not very long after that, because I was terrified before. I would never have children because I would never be able to give birth.
Right.
But after witnessing this experience that was so empowering, because, I also saw my sister as this lioness. She had a huge bush of hair and she was so rosy and shiny and she was so in her power. I couldn't believe that this is possible.
Wow.
I thought you were just a victim lying on your back, but it was the exact opposite. So the literature, the experience of seeing my sister like that, I was like, I want to be pregnant. I could do this.
Right.
And then, of course, I had this beautiful Swedish man, Patrick. And we got pregnant, and then beautiful Ia. I had a doula midwife, and I said, I want all this. I don't know if it's possible, but this I've seen. So apparently it's possible. Yeah. Could I maybe be in water? I don't want any interruptions. I want my partner there. I was listening to Tibetan chants. It was an extraordinary woman that I hope I remember her name now, Yunshin Lamo. I was listening to her. I wanted all the trappings, because I still didn't really truly believe I could do it. And then it just all worked out very well. I was in the water. I had a beautiful midwife. I went through the same process as everyone else, where you at some point think this is too hard. This is very hard. This is much harder than I thought. But I kept sort of breathing, kept being in my own space, closing my eyes, going within. And I remember that moment when Ia's head was born. It was like a big fire that exploded in my head. But a beautiful fire, right? Not a painful fire, more like a moment of enlightenment almost, like the next step in your life on this planet. When you give birth to somebody and then seeing Ia coming out. I mean, after that, I was like, how can I not work with this?
Yes.
Because that moment of birth was truly like in my mind and in my heart and in my body. Like a transformation, like a rebirth into another truth. A truth that I didn't know existed. A lie that was told to me before was proven wrong.
Yes.
So basically, shortly, that's who the doula Chery is.
Yes.
But I cannot say who I am if I don't tell that story. So that was the story.
That is the story. And it's so true. I just resonate so much, because that's the gift that you gave me, is this reprogramming and understanding my idea of what birth is, and can it really be this beautiful experience, and then it is this sacred passage into the next phase and this connection to something that is so much greater than yourself. And I remember there was an image that you shared with me of a woman with her arms up in the air that stayed with me. And having this, reframing my idea of a contraction as a way of this ripple moving through me, and that my body has this intelligence to do what it's supposed to do, what it's made to do, and just to allow myself to get out of the way and allow this life to come through me.
Yeah, that is so beautiful,
and
Tara.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
It's something that it's so personal. And so many of us, I also shared this conditioning, these ideas of birth being this horrible, I'm lying on a table, I'm screaming, I'm breathing, my face is red, and then I'm yelling at my husband, get out, this like violent, really experience.
Exactly.
That I was terrified.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, we live in a world where violence is much more accepted than anything else. We get sort of programmed, if we even just think at what is happening now, how can we ever think that it's okay to solve a conflict with violence, both on a personal level and on a global level? So that being said, I mean that birth, it's possible to have an empowering and beautiful and liberating birth. Birth always exists within a context. And I'm always thinking, I was just really lucky. Firstly, that I found that book that Nathaniel gave me, that I had the opportunity to see my sister's experience, because she didn't know so much more. She just had heard a few things, and then she was just young and in the moment and sort of free-spirited. But it all exists within a context. And that's why if your context is telling you something else, and you are prepared for the worst, of course, things are going to be very different. And that's why when I came to Sweden, I was so glad to see that there was a movement. First, it was Födelsehuset that I became very involved with, who wanted to create a more humane way and place for women to give birth than just your normal clinical hospital setting. Not saying that the clinical hospital setting is not a good place. I think in Sweden it's one of the best places in the world where you can give birth in a most physiologically friendly way. So yeah, I just think your most important factors, anyway, for me, have always been that who are the people surrounding you? What sort of state are they in? It doesn't really matter. It can be the hospital setting, it can be a home setting. I always think, for example, of this very beautiful story. It's the same year that Ia was born, there was a flood in Mozambique. And there was a pregnant woman up in a tree, and she went into labor. And, I mean, she was in an impossible situation. The context was horrific, if you think about it. It's flooding, there's no ground, there's no people. And then there was a South African military helicopter that was circling to try and find survivors. And they saw this woman in the tree, and they sent off one man. And as he got a hold of her and got her into the actual helicopter, she gave birth in his arms. Because it was that moment where there was someone safe, you were safe, you trusted these people, and wow, she could just do it. So sometimes the environment itself isn't even that important. It's the people that surround you, and a sense of safety, and a sense that it's okay now. I can do this now.
And I think so much of that is for me, that was preparation to train. I did hypnobirthing practice with like recoding my relationship to pain, and because a contraction, even knowing that that's not that specific kind of pain.
No,
it's actually my body doing what it needs to do. Nothing's happening to me. And then having really clear idea of what I wanted my birth to be, and writing it down. You know, the mind just wants to sort some things out so that it can feel safe.
Exactly.
And then in that space, I can be free to allow things to change. If these things happen, I'm going to be okay because I've figured out enough that I can be safe.
Exactly.
And so we showed up at the hospital. We decided to go to the hospital. And I think because we walked in with this confidence or calm, that we had these two beautiful midwives that greeted us, and they had coincidentally or synchronistically, they had run a natural birthing center for years. And they just looked at us and said, "How can we serve you?"
That is so beautiful.
And they even like the way they were with Norvi, whispering tips in his ear, just how to support me and coming in and out of the room quietly. It was just grace and beautiful.
Yes.
So it's true, you can here in Sweden
Yes.
even give birth in a hospital. And you weren't available because we had planned to have you with us, but you were in another birth. But even that was okay because you had given us the guidance to be.
Yeah, you were so strong in yourself. I often say to my doula clients that if I have really succeeded as a doula, that moment where I feel I have succeeded is if you actually don't even need me at all at the birth. You've come to that place where you feel I've gathered the information I needed. I have a little bit of knowledge about the physiology. I also know what is important in the hospital context and what I might find there, what might be suggested, and why that is good. And now, Chery, it's cool. I feel you can stay home and we're going to go to the hospital and this is going to be fine. Then I almost feel like, wow, I've really succeeded.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a very, very wonderful feeling to have somebody that you know and that has followed you also in the birth situation, because it's not always fun to change midwife, for example, and get used to a new person.
I think we got lucky.
Yeah, you were very lucky. I'm thinking all the midwives I've met in Sweden are truly amazing and do a fantastic job. It's not like that in all places in the world, and certainly not in places like South Africa, for example. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done for a more humane birth environment where people also, or women especially, have more choices. That was also what Födelsehuset were working for a long period of time. It's if you want to give birth at home and it's no complications, it's your second pregnancy and you have caregivers with you, that you could have that option at least. So more options is still something that's being discussed in Sweden. There are people giving birth at home with midwives, and that works out very well. There's many people giving birth, majority of people giving birth in the hospital setting, also very satisfied. I think the most important thing is that you need to feel that your caregivers inform you of what is happening and that they inform you in a respectful way the whole time, so that you are there, that you are present at your own birth. Because I think it doesn't matter if you in the end up maybe having to have a cesarean section or a vacuum extraction. If you feel like you are the centerpiece in the room and you're being respectfully met, and you're being explained to why certain things need to be done, and you can be present, that in itself makes birth very beautiful. And also the time afterwards, you can feel I was respected, even though maybe it didn't turn out the way I thought it would, and the way I would have wanted, or even the way I planned in my letter, because it's such a great thing to have that plan. But it's also a very beautiful thing to be able to prepare your mind for the fact that it's an unpredictable moment in life, like as so many others. As our children turned out to be completely unpredictable than what we thought. So the same with birth. It's, I would say, the one time in life where it's very important that we go into it with a very open mind.
Yes.
And just feel the most important thing for me today is just that I'm present in what is happening, and that I try to stay a little calm in the face of many different things that might come at me. Even before, that's normally what I give people as an advice. You're going to hear so much. You're going to hear everything from orgasmic birth is possible, to it will definitely be cesarean section, to you absolutely must take artificial oxytocin. You'll hear everything from different people, from other women, from your caregivers. Just take some time and first just relax into yourself. You've got 9 months to actually not so much, preparation is one thing, but get to know your mind, get to know what's going on inside of me actually. What am I thinking? Am I thinking thoughts that was put there by my parents? Am I thinking thoughts put there by my culture? Am I thinking thoughts given to me by all the books that I'm reading at the moment? Föda utan rädsla, Birthing with Confidence, for example, was one of my favorite books. And many women have read that book and still read that book, and it's a fantastic book to have. But it's also important to just ask yourself, who am I? What have I got with me in my baggage? What can I just relax into things for a while before I decide on something specific? And then, of course, it's wonderful if people come across your way that also just want to give you a different story to the one you have. And that one has to try, if possible, not to become too polarized. Because as you and I spoke of earlier, it is a very polarized world right now with many feelings of for and against. I'm like into this birth or that birth. But let's not be fundamentalist. Let's just see what is going to be the best for me and my family. Who am I? What am I thinking? What's going on in my mind? And then when you feel like you're in quite a balanced space, try to see, what do you want to write in that plan? Is it water you like? Is it touch you like? Is it movement? Who are you as a person normally? Do you like movement? Like you used to like movement. You still do, right?
Yes, I love
so you were
movement.
moving a lot, I remember.
Yes.
Seem to remember you told me, right?
Yes, and that was one of the biggest tips that you provided for Norvi as my partner in this, in between contractions. Move. Just keep moving. And it would just be these little movements, but find a new way. Don't get stuck.
Yeah, exactly right now.
So helpful.
Yeah, and as I'm thinking, we sitting in the now, isn't that the most beautiful thing you can take with you to a birth?
Yes.
And in fact, it's even written in this book, Confident Birth, right? Where many times in birth rooms, and it's kind of crazy that there's a clock on the wall.
Yeah.
There should never be a clock on the wall.
Time is so funny.
And women often ask, like, how long do you think will this be going on for?
Yeah.
And then the greatest thing you can do as a caregiver is to try and say, let's just take this contraction and then we'll see what happens.
Yes.
And then we'll just take the next one and then we'll just work like that.
I remember there was a video that you had us watch, or you shared with me. There was another moment where I remember that her partner shared every contraction. They would just be in it. And I think this is where the image of the arms up, allowing that magical contraction because it's doing what it needs to do.
Yes.
And then he would say, that was a good one. And you say, yes, that was a good one.
Exactly.
Rather than, oh, it's over. It's how
no,
long?
exactly.
Like that was a good one.
That was so good. And you're never going to have to do that one again.
Right.
And that one did something so amazing for you and for this baby.
One step closer.
One step closer.
Yeah.
So I think just sitting in the now and remembering that, the most potent place to be in any given circumstance. What is happening right now?
Yeah.
If we can just get ourselves into that space as well when we are going to give birth and when we're preparing for birth and even afterwards. I think you and me and many other moms have felt there's a lot of focus on the birth and preparation for birth, but then boom, afterwards.
Yes.
Afterwards is actually a time where it would be really good to get a little bit of support or actually a lot of support. Because many people come back afterwards and say, I wish there was a doula then.
Right.
When I had to breastfeed, when I was tired, when I wondered, is the child breathing?
Yeah.
I often thought I was lying with my head on Ia's chest. Is he even breathing?
Right.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Then it's also lovely to be able to, okay, what is happening just today? Because sometimes I feel women feel so stressed that they have to do a million things, right? Also have to go back to work, back into town, drink coffee lattes, blah, blah, blah. But how about if it were just like, why don't we just take one day at a time? And I'll just be sitting in this sofa today with total acceptance and do the breastfeeding, because I know if I do that after 8 weeks, it's all going to be established and we can do anything we want. Right. We can travel around the world, basically. Right. If I can just go through these first 8 weeks.
And you're never going to get them back. This moment.
You're never going to get them back.
Yeah, just to enjoy that moment. Enjoy this. I remember that because it was like the black poop, the yellow poop. I was like, nobody told me about this.
No, exactly. Yeah.
And having that, it's so true, is that we get so focused on the birth and that moment after too. You shared the the physiology that happens naturally within the baby.
Oh, yes,
right?
Absolutely. And this is also one of those best kept secrets that I
Yes.
don't know why we are not speaking of this more often, but the golden hours
Yes.
after birth.
Yes.
Because in that first 30 minutes when the baby has just been born, both the mother and the baby will have the highest oxytocin levels of their lifetime. And that oxytocin is purely meant for mom and baby to bond for a lifetime. So if you can just leave them skin to skin, the physiology that happens there is immensely powerful. It's the kind of power that a woman gets to be able to lift cars of children. That is the bonding we're talking of that is so strong in those first 30 minutes. And our human bodies and our human chemistry and human physiology actually give us that golden key. Like the one I didn't get with mom there, right?
Right.
I was taken away to the incubator and all that, washed and polished. And still, it really took us decades to get to know each other and to bond. It was hard work. I mean, one can always try again and again and again. And they know today, studies show that the bonding is possible later on if maybe you didn't manage in the beginning for whatever reason. Some women maybe got very ill afterwards or cesarean and had to be by themselves for some hours. But at least today in the medical establishment, everybody talks about zero separation as of critical importance for the child's health as well. Because they know that even if you move the baby just an arm length away from the mother in the beginning, you can see that they have less capacity because, the baby's body heat is regulated by mom's body. Mom's chest is thermal. So move the baby away and the baby can't regulate its own temperature. It has high levels of cortisol, stress hormone. So they know these things today. If you place baby back on mom's chest, baby's body temperature is great. Baby's got good levels.
I remember also immediately he just started reaching toward my
breast.
Yes.
Yeah, they're so intelligent. One of my favorite physicians in the world, he's a Swedish man, but he worked as a doctor at the maternity ward in Cape Town for many, many years. And he started something called Kangaroo Mother Care. Kangaroo Mother Care is actually originally from Colombia. But they adopted it at this hospital in Cape Town, which serves an area that's very troubled. It's a community that really suffers, and there's 1,000 births a month. And what he then saw is if he urged moms to have this immediate contact immediately after birth, there were many fewer babies, for example, given up for adoption. Babies abandoned, because that immediate connection and bonding is so powerful, and so it also saves a lot of money. That hospital didn't have to invest in all kinds of other medical equipment that is needed if the baby gets so sick afterwards, because the glucose levels look good when baby's on mom's chest, even with prematures. It's the best place to be. It's the best place to expect care. And he's got this quote that I love, and that is, a child born is expecting a relationship. A newborn baby is expecting a relationship with somebody, to a bond immediately. That's who we are. We're social creatures. So that's where babies belong. And they can get care on the chest.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the beautiful thing.
And the bonding with the father's okay too, the skin to skin.
Absolutely. Bonding with dad. I remember another birth where I was, and mom had to be whisked away because it was a little bit of other things going on. And then it was immediate chest to chest, skin to skin with dad. So dad is as good as skin to skin. Mom just has the added benefit of breast milk.
Yes.
So, but skin to skin with any immediate caregiver is good.
Yes.
Yeah. There's so many beautiful stories. I don't even know where would I begin. But as you and I said earlier, and this has also come after many years of witnessing births and being at different birth situations, my own ideas have also changed a lot.
Yeah.
But I really do try to not be fundamentalistic in any way when I meet somebody. And I can give one example. There was a person who was from Spain, and said that this is how it is. I really want you as my doula, but I'm also definitely going to have epidural, and I really actually prefer to have a cesarean. And I'm wondering if I should even write a contract with Swedish healthcare and ask if I can have a cesarean, because I don't want to go through this. It's horrifying, and I read about how many women tear and have injuries afterwards. And I'm just listening, and I'm taking it in, and I'm having respect for what that person is saying and for their fears. And then we start to just look at facts and what maybe can be done to help you with your fears, and first work with that. If you then come to the situation where in the end, after you've worked with fears, after you've maybe gotten some tools, done breathing exercises, know what it is you want, and you still come to a situation where, no, maybe, I am one of those people that just right now, in this specific birth context, I'm going to actually need an epidural and it will help me. Then I think that is great as well.
Because you've gone through the process of really
You've gone through the process. And also sometimes there's also people that said to me, I want to have an orgasmic birth. And I'm preparing to have that orgasmic birth. And it's got to be that way because I know it's possible. I've heard it being done. And then again, maybe we come to that place and that person sees unpredictable things happened along the way. For example, there is a time when it's apt to have an epidural. If a woman has been awake, for example, for 2 days.
They're tired.
Yeah, they're tired beyond the point of really finding themselves anymore. And if an epidural can give just a little break, so you can just come back, eat something, just have a conversation, change clothes, you feel right, let's go. So there's always a time for everything.
Right.
If it's not just done out of fear and something that you just told, why should you have pain? Because there's this, there's that. As you mentioned earlier, pain, we actually don't have to ascribe it a quality. It is just. And especially in the context of birth, it only becomes negative if there's fear involved.
Right.
So many physicians often who work in the maternity ward says that fear is a pathology of labor. If you get a woman into a state of fear and panic, that causes a pathology. The pain in itself, no. It has a specific purpose and we can work with it in certain ways. We all come to a place where we feel this is too challenging. And then either you have people by your side who fully take over and become your pain relief. And it's actually more effective, and you use sounds. And I mean, they do say, right, sound is an incredibly powerful pain relief method.
This is where these primal sounds come from.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah.
This also reminds me of, for me, my experience with Norvi is that he and I, we gave birth together.
No, exactly.
Yeah. And there's just such a possibility for you to bond with your partner and bring them
Absolutely.
into it. And that's a gift that you were able to give us.
I mean, there I can tell you a very beautiful story.
Yes.
About a partner giving birth, to their baby. My best friend in South Africa, her name is Jenny, and she was pregnant before me. No, not at all. She was pregnant after me. I had given birth to Ia, and then she was going to give birth. And I was in Cape Town visiting them. And in Cape Town, you can do a home birth. And everything was already set up. They had the pool set up, and the midwife was coming. And she went into labor New Year's Eve. So her daughter Dharma is born on the 1st of January. And I was there just a few hours before she went into labor. And then that evening, she let me know, I'm in labor now. And she was really so prepared. Yeah. And everything went so well. It's just right at the end, when she actually was busy getting these strong pushing reflexes, that she went into some kind of state of both tiredness and I can't do this. And then her partner, whose name is Attila, came to sit with her and held her hands. And he said, okay, now you're just going to do what I'm going to tell you to do. We're going to breathe now. And then you're going to push when I say push. Of course, he had a midwife in the background there telling him what to do. And then he told her what to do. Because she was so focused on him. And he's always been like her strength and her pillar. So she said to me afterwards, Attila totally gave birth to this baby. I just did exactly what he said. And finally, you know, that's how we did it.
Yes.
Yeah. So
amazing. Yes.
Partners have an important part to play.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think also it's because our parents' generation and even some of us today still don't know the full spectrum of what birth looks like. Because I often say to people, and as you mentioned earlier, when one saw it in TV shows or in films when women are giving birth, they normally zoomed in on that, right? The woman is screaming and angry. But they failed to tell us that there is a very short space of time where one gets very primal, even aggressive feelings, but there's a reason for it.
Right, it gives you that extra power.
Yeah, remember you've been sort of under the spell, so to speak, of oxytocin. Yes. If you're in a relaxed place and you allowed the body to just go into that oxytocin space where you're a little drowsy, you don't really know what you want, you're just like, okay. But then later on, when you almost fully dilated, and baby's almost going to be born, you can't just be on an oxytocin high.
Right.
Because you're going to need to have some adrenaline and some power to push to get to be the lioness. And then the body releases a lot of adrenaline just before.
Amazing.
And of course, that adrenaline expresses itself in different ways for different people. Some can get angry, some maybe get very sad, or some scream, or some just like, why are you even saying this? Or I want that. And then it's over again.
Right, so it's not even personal.
It's not even personal. So it's good for us to just know that there's a very short little space of time where one can have those very strong emotions. Then you should actually be happy for them and be like, oh my God.
Thank you, body.
It's that thing. I'm soon going to give birth now.
Yeah.
And that's why it's nice if somebody can remind you.
Yeah. Here comes that lioness.
Yeah. And if the partner can be like, oh yeah, it's that phase.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Not get all personal about it. Or
so
sensitive.
Their preparation is very good again, like you said earlier.
Right.
Just a few hints and tips.
Here
you
comes.
can be expecting this.
Yeah.
Many women, for example, are very stressed when they're so tired.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, how will I do this even?
Right.
But it's good if somebody can remind them, okay, oxytocin, which drives this whole process, makes you very drowsy. And also, none of the muscles in your body right now needs any glucose, because you're supposed to not do anything. It's only your uterus right now, which is the main muscle working. Okay, the uterus needs glucose, but the rest of the body, we're actually not running that marathon that they spoke of. The idea is that you can be as passive as possible. The more passive you are, with nice slow movements, changing position, the more drowsy you become. It's fine, because you're going to get the adrenaline rush later on, for sure. And as you and I said earlier when we spoke, each birth really is so individual. So we just have to see it as that. We just have to say, okay, Tara, she had it like this, 5 hours. Chery, she had it like that for various reasons, you know, genetics, this and that.
Right.
Another person, 3 days, can still be empowering.
Right.
And we don't have to, you know, compare with each other as people. How was it and why couldn't I have that? And I wanted this, but I didn't have that. I think the most important thing is, again, how was your surroundings?
Right.
How were you received? How did you feel about just things turning out the way they turned out? That acceptance. I think the acceptance is also something important for all of us to work with.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember I was vegetarian during the entire time I was pregnant with Ia. And then I had given birth. It was a relatively quick process as well, because I was home in this beautiful home where we lived, where my sister then also almost gave birth, right? And I was like, I'm going to stay here for as long as possible. And Patrick came home in the evening at 12, and I had a little bit of something, but I thought I also ate a lot of dried fruit, so it's maybe that. My stomach's just upset, so I was like, this is nothing. Gave Patrick a massage. That was like 12 o'clock in the evening. Then I wanted to take a bath. And Patrick was saying, it seems like something is happening and you are 3 days overdue. Don't you think it's something? I'm like, no. It can't be something, because it feels very mild. Then I went out into the garden and walked around with my dogs. I had 2 beautiful dogs, and they behaved very differently. They were circling me the entire time. I was like, whoa, they're so strange today.
Wow.
But I think they then already knew that maybe, Chery, you need to take this a little bit more seriously.
It's the oxytocin. It's playing
basically. And then Patrick convinced me because, he started seeing that I'm like a little bit more bent over and my breath is a little bit more intense than before. So he said, no, we just go. And then we came to this place and my beautiful midwife was there and I put on the music and the this and the that, and I was just really, really lucky that it went that well and that it went that fast. But I also remember a point where I was in the bathtub and it was right towards the end where I looked up at my midwife and I said, please, I really want pain relief because I don't think I can do this for much longer. And she was so bright and clever. She just looked at me and she's like, okay, Chery, just one more contraction, then I'm going to go get the lustgas, this whatever it's called again in English, laughing gas. And I was like, yes. And then the next push, Ia came out, of course.
She knew.
She knew, yeah. But it's also then okay to kind of forgive yourself and go, yeah, I did really think and feel that at the moment. But I had a caregiver who knew where I was in the process.
You had this.
Yes, exactly. And also who knew the process and also knew most women are going to ask for something at that point. Because it's like, imagine the whole universe conspiring and contracting around one event. It's the body, it's the spirit, it's the everything wanting to come into the world. Of course, that's going to be pretty powerful.
Yes.
So you're going to want something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So beautiful. So what can you say where is birth today? Is there anything, what has changed in the last 8 years and how are things looking and is there hope? Are there things to be aware of?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would like to say that's really important for everyone in the whole world and for us in Sweden is let's not fight. Let's not fight about how birth is supposed to be and not supposed to be. I don't know if you saw just recently, Yoga Girl had put something out on her social media platform. She has a lot of followers and she did a free birth. It was very, very controversial. Many people felt very offended by it. And there again, I'm feeling we must be careful not to become fundamentalistic and we must be careful not to guide each other in a specific direction. That's why I said earlier, it's more important to take it a little bit easy when you get pregnant and not go too much into for and against. I'm definitely against that, but I'm definitely for this. And I definitely want that, but I'm definitely against this. And get involved in all of that because that ain't going to be good for you even then. But so my main message would be Swedish healthcare is very, very good. Swedish maternity care is very, very good. They work from the concept of zero tolerance of losing a life, losing the life of the mother or the child. So of course there's a lot of that thinking that you want to pick up on complications very early on. And they're very, very good with that. They're also very focused on trying to encourage a physiological birth because of all these very positive aspects, right? Both the process itself, the bonding period afterwards. There's also the breastfeeding that's easier, the recovery period for the mother. So there's many, many reasons why physiological birth is to be encouraged and also made possible in that context, right? With the caregivers and all that. But it's a very sensitive topic, I think, because just recently there was, for example, many articles written in GP even where some women felt that they wanted to, right from the start, push for having a cesarean because they felt that's what they wanted. So it is very sensitive area. And I don't think anyone can really tell anyone else what is good for them or what they want or what they need. One simply have to look at each individual case, each individual family. But it is of immense help if one has caregivers throughout your pregnancy that you know well, that you can discuss all these things with, because you'll go through so many thoughts and ideas and fears. I don't know if I even ended the one story that we began earlier, but I think I mentioned somebody who really wanted to have a cesarean and wanted to have an epidural, but still wanted to have a doula just, because it felt safe. Who then, in the end, after really just giving herself some time and preparing and reading different things and talking to caregivers, both me, midwives, was like, wow, no, I don't at all want that. And then in the end, did definitely not get it and became Sweden's most active birth activist. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Just for it, and it's what we started with this conversation, and I think the work that we're doing here at the Now is taking this birth is a huge opportunity to take a moment to just go within, and look at our thoughts, look at our conditioning. What am I thinking about this, and where did these thoughts come from?
Yes.
And what thoughts do I want to keep, and which thoughts do I want to question and investigate further?
Exactly. Just and ask, where is our culture at right now? In Sweden, for example, in the 70s, they had an ABC birth center, which was a completely natural birth center, because birth seems to also have all these trends. And it's very important that one doesn't just fall for a trend. You really need to figure out, who am I and what do I want? What do I need? As we said earlier, what have I got in my baggage? Some people maybe have sexual molestation as something that happened to them as a child. They would need a much more safe environment.
Right.
Yeah. Other people, no, they need something different. But not to get trapped by the black and white world. Not to get trapped by the for and against, but instead just do your own research a little bit and see, get lots of different ideas and then test them on yourself. Really, do I feel okay with this? And what is this even? Sometimes one just hears a story, like you and I may be telling our stories, and maybe somebody might get annoyed and think, bloody hell, they were just lucky. Nobody has it that way. But just maybe keep your mind open and think, well, what if that is also possible? There's such a wide spectrum. It's an unpredictable situation. The best you can do for yourself is when you are pregnant, find a nice pregnancy yoga class that you can go to. So you meet other women or other just pregnant people.
Yes.
Who's sharing your experience. You can also become really good friends and keep that friendship. And those people are very valuable for you as a network when your baby is born and when you have all those questions and you're up in the middle of the night and you don't necessarily want to wake your partner, but some other person is awake that you can call and ask, what do I do? Or just if you want to cry and say, I'm bloody exhausted because I've been breastfeeding from one breast to the next to the next. So I think community is important. Absolutely. Connection is important. Find a group in real life, I would suggest. It's one thing to, follow different influencers or follow different kontos or whatever you want to call them. But in real life is still going to be the very best. Yes. Make those friends. Find those people that's your people, whether it's a doula or whether it's a midwife group. I mean, we have this beautiful midwife group in Gothenburg called Barnmorskegruppen that go around to people's homes and give them support. They come afterwards as well. Find your people. If it is that you really feel strongly about a hospital birth, find the midwife at your MBSC that you really like, and discuss all those things. And even find maybe somebody, could be a doula, could be somebody who gives a birth preparation class to tell you what can you expect when you come to the hospital. Because many people don't know that these days a water birth is very possible. At Östra, for example, you'll always have access to a bathtub if you want. Now everybody is into this movement. Is good, It's no longer that you have to be still. You can move around even though you have all these apparatus on you. There's balls that you can ask for, Pilates balls. There's these carts that you can push around and go for walks with. I have a beautiful story, for example. It's an Italian girl that I was doula for. We were outside when she was maybe 6 centimeters dilated and she was hugging trees. And she's not a hippie or anything. It just felt like she wanted to do that. It felt good. The tree was stable and she could hang on to it. And she sat in front of it as well, breathing. And it was a very beautiful moment. So there's so much. I think preparation is a good thing. Because why? You empowering you. You're not just arriving and saying, well, I guess you guys and girls know what I need to be doing. Right, so just tell me what to do. Preparation is a good thing.
Right, so you can stand in your center like what you said.
You can stand in your center, Yeah, without expecting that it has to be in a certain way.
Right, because your center can handle.
Yeah, yes. I mean, all these things happen to us in life, right? We don't know how it's going to go. Like now with my mom, for example, that has Alzheimer's. It's the absolute last thing that I ever thought could happen to just her. She's the most verbal person. She's a teacher her whole life. So yet again, an unpredictable thing. And what can we do? Either accept or fight it all the way. And then it just becomes harder and harder. Yeah.
And then finding even the beauty in moments.
Yeah, there's always beauty. There's always beauty to be found, even in small moments, even in the moments that you never wanted to be that way. Yeah.
So beautiful, Chery. Ooh.
Oh, Tara, it's so lovely to speak to you again. It's all coming back to me, you know.
So lovely.
When I see you now, I remember those first moments when I met you. And I thought you were so beautiful, so radiant, and already so in your center, you know. I remember you always used to sit with your hands like crossed over your chest when you said something important. Maybe you still do that. It's like this very beautiful gesture. And you were precious to me as well. So you must know that it went both ways.
I think we find our people, and it's true, and I love what you shared, because finding you felt so natural. It just was meant to be, destiny. And then the bonds and the friends that you make, whether they're old friends, for me, coming through you, the community that we had during that time are still always so special and sacred to me. It's the time in your life that you do create like a mama tribe and this like loving support.
Exactly. It's the most important thing.
So you are such a gift to me, and I'm so grateful for you sharing your wisdom with us today.
And thank you for inviting me to the now, because now the now is being that for so many people in our lovely city. Now the now is a sanctuary where you can share your wisdom. So thanks for that, Tara.
Thank you, Chery. And hopefully the now will have some more of Chery. So you don't know. Maybe we
don't know.
Maybe we can create a little community.
Oh, that would be beautiful, of course.
Offering some support.
Yeah, let's see what we can do.
Absolutely. So thank you so much.
Okay.
Love
Thanks.
you.
Love you too.